Here we go. Hello, welcome back. Let's take our seats. Welcome back to the final panel session of today's symposium. My name is Leanne Daphner. I'm the conservator of photographs at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Super happy to be here celebrating with everybody, learning about all these really important projects. I want to thank the Lens Media Lab for bringing all of these talks together so that we can actually hear them at one shot, one go, and compare and just learn about what is the potential of photography and the data that we can extract from photography. So, you all have already met the next panel of speakers, and you've been hearing from them all day long. So we thought we would introduce you to another side of them so you can learn a bit more. Let me get my thing here. We asked the panel, each of the panel speakers to choose their favorite paper from the Lens Media Lab collection. And so I'm going to put them in order and tell you what they said and why did they make these choices. So here we go. There we go. The first speaker that we're going to hear from today is Kappy Mintie, who is a senior researcher in art history at Lens Media Lab. Kappy chose Griffin's 1910 Goldona. She loves the really fun package design and especially the tagline, "Just fix it." Fittingly, Kappy's presentation will be on the Lens Media Lab collection of photographic paper. The next speaker will be Damon Crockett, lead scientist, Lens Media Lab. Damon's pick is catalog 1979. It's a Kodak Canada PMC bromide from 1937. Damon loves the understated design, beautiful topography, and the pop of color from the sticker at the bottom. Everyone agrees it's a very elegant choice. And he will be talking about the lens media method. And then the third and final speaker will be Paul Messier, Director, Lens Media Lab. No surprise that Paul was torn when asked to choose just one paper. But he decided to throw it all in with this Novax gaslight paper from 1923. Paul just loved their motto, "No vexing difficulties." And the manufacturer, the Immortal Cosmos Photographic Ltd. And he will be turning our attention to what's inside these packages when he introduces the Lens Media Lab Sample Book, a new tool for describing the visual properties of photographs. So over to you, Kappy. Got my stuff.
All right, thank you so much, Leanne. That was a lot of fun. You all have a new insight into all of our psyches by knowing our favorite papers. All right, so I will get started. And before I begin, I want to say a few words about the theme of this panel, which is on the legacy of the Lens Media Lab. As Paul mentioned in our introductory remarks, the Lens Media Lab will have spent its first round of funding in 2025. And with that funding, we have produced tools and research that we anticipate will impact the study of photography in numerous ways going forward. And you've heard about some of these projects in our previous panels. Here we want to address several additional efforts, many of which are foundational to the work of the lab, and that we imagine will continue to be of use to those interested in studying the material history of photography. And to begin, it is my pleasure to discuss one of the central legacies of the Lens Media Lab, its collection of historic photographic papers. Oops. Okay, there we go. So as Paul and others have mentioned, the lab's collection is comprised of over 7,000 examples of photographic papers, primarily silver gelatin papers, produced internationally between about 1890 and 2010. It includes papers by both major producers like Kodak and Foma, whose packages you see here, as well as papers by smaller, shorter-lived manufacturers like Dasonville and Griffin's. It's the largest known collection of its kind in the world, and it's the baseline from which we have built all of the tools and research that you've heard about today. However, we have just scratched the surface in terms of what can be learned from this incredible collection. Given its great research potential, I want to use my time here to show you all how to search and call up items from the collection using Yale's Lux platform, and to suggest how the physical collection can be used alongside data from Paperbase in various studies. Okay. While Paperbase is one means of searching the lab's collection of photographic papers, you can also use Yale's Lux platform. And before I walk through that process, I should first explain what Lux is for those of you who are unfamiliar with this fantastic tool. Lux is a centralized search platform for discovering and locating works across collections at Yale. In addition to allowing users to search across collections here, what makes Lux really powerful is that it can show users related items in different collections. And I'll give an example of that in a bit. But before I do, I first want to give a huge thanks to Rob Sanderson, Kelly Davis, who I think is here today, and the whole Cultural Heritage Information Technology team for working with the lab to bring our collection into Lux. So thank you. Okay, so once you are in Lux, how do you find the Lens Media Lab collection? The easiest way to do this is to do an advanced search and to enter Lens Media Lab in the People and Groups section, as you can see here. And then if you search, it'll bring up the whole collection, as you can see here. All right, so now that we have the collection in front of us, let's look at the information you'll find when you click on an information record in Lux. So the first thing you'll see is a really high quality image of the paper package or sample book you selected. The Lux viewer allows you to zoom in closely to look at details, which unfortunately I cannot demo here, but it's really powerful. And you can also easily download the images using this button here. And you'll note in this presentation and all others that we've included color bars with all of our images to include proper color balancing, which is very useful, especially if you want to use any of these images in publication. So if you scroll down on an item record a bit further, you'll find key metadata about the specific paper. So going from top to bottom here, first we see its catalog number, which is 5414S. Then we have information about the manufacturer and brand of paper, in this case, Mimosa's Luxus Bramosa. Next, we see the surface code of the paper, which is Mimosa 21. And following that, the key descriptors of this surface, glossy, cream, and single weight. And then last at the bottom, we have the creation date, which is here circa 1940. Unlike Paperbase, you will not be able to see a glyph representation of the paper surface or see a rendering of the base color or texture here in Lux, but you can easily move over to Paperbase to check these details if you wish. While those elements are missing from Lux, one of the great things about searching the collection here rather than Paperbase is the fact that you have unique web pages for every sample of paper in our collection. And this makes it easier to request to view items in person. And we are very enthusiastic about researchers coming to view collection items in person, so I don't want to walk through the process for doing that. And as we can see here, it is very straightforward. The first thing you want to do is to gather up the web pages in Lux for the items you wish to view, and then send them to my wonderful colleague, Sydney, who you heard from earlier. Her email is up on the screen here, and you can also find it on the lab's website. With Sydney, you can schedule a time to visit and discuss any questions you have about the collection. Sydney is extremely knowledgeable about our collection and will be able to make great suggestions related to your research interests. Once the date of your visit arrives, you'll come to the lab's home in Building 900 of Yale's West Campus. And they will have everything ready for you in one of our comfortable conference spaces. As I said before, we are very happy to have visitors come view the collection, though we do ask that you make your request at least a week in advance so that we have time to pull the requested items. In addition to viewing specific paper samples in person, there are many other benefits of coming to the lab to see the collection. And a good example of this is sample book 294, which is a Kodak professional handbook from 1952. You see the cover there at left, and at right you see some of the paper samples that are included in this handbook. However, there is much more in this volume than paper samples. This thick handbook is filled with detailed text related to all things Kodak, from films to cameras, chemicals, and equipment. So to give just one example, you see the binder here open to a section on photographic papers. The contents for this section, which are listed there at left, goes over the range of topics related to its papers. I personally find Kodak's descriptions of their papers extremely helpful. Though, say you're more interested in darkroom work, you can find the processing recommendations and suggested chemical preparations here. And I should note that we did not digitize the full contents of this and other handbooks in our collection. And that is because the focus of our database and our collection is on individual samples of photographic papers rather than the sample books as a whole. But you can consult this really useful information when you visit the lab. In addition to sort of official information from Kodak, you can also often find personal annotations from the owners of these handbooks. So here again, we're still looking at sample book 294, and at right we see a handwritten formula for hypo for portrait film that was likely recorded by the book's presumed owner, J.A. Evanson, whose name is scrawled on the inside cover at left. These annotations reveal how handbooks like this were used in the everyday life of various professional photographers. And as we see here, some photographers riffed on the formulas given in the handbook to make ones that best suited their needs. This is a useful reminder that handbooks like this, as well as the processing instructions that often came with packages of photographic papers, were more like guidelines than firm rules. So if you're coming all the way to New Haven to look at photographic papers in our collection, you may be interested in seeing related items in other collections at Yale. As I mentioned earlier, one of the fantastic things about Lux is that it allows you to search across collections at Yale. So say, for example, you are interested in photographic papers made by the popular British manufacturer Ilford. If you do a search for Ilford in Lux, you will find many items from our collection, 602 to be exact, as you can see there. But you'll also find Ilford-related items at the libraries, the Yale University Art Gallery, and the Yale Center for British Art. And we can take a quick peek at some of these. If we look at the Ilford-related items at the libraries, we have 29 results, and the top two are Ilford photography manuals that I believe are from the 1950s. And these could be useful if you're interested in how Ilford described its papers and processes at that time. The next two results, the Lake House print and the Ilford Recorder newspaper, are not directly related to the photographic manufacturer Ilford, but rather to the town of Ilford in East London, where the manufacturer is located. These items are likely less relevant to your research, though the Ilford newspaper could be interesting if you wanted to know more about life outside the factory. And I should say it's a similar situation when you look at Ilford-related items held by other Yale institutions like the Gallery or the Yale Center for British Art. Some results will be very useful to you and others less so. Whatever the case, you can feel confident that you've reviewed all Ilford-related items at Yale when doing a Lux search. So this is all to say that Lux offers a more holistic way to search cultural heritage collections at Yale. As we've just seen, there are works across Yale that can allow you to learn more about the photographic papers in the lab's collection, and vice versa, that the lab's collection can deepen a researcher's material engagement with photography collections held at Yale. So by this point, you've had a chance to see the Lens Media Lab's photographic paper collection in both Paperbase and Lux. And as you've likely noticed, each platform has different affordances. To summarize them, I would say Paperbase is best suited for looking at the lab's collection as a whole, for identifying broad trends in photographic papers over time, and for creating visualizations of these trends. Lux, on the other hand, allows you to focus on individual items in the lab's collection, to request to view those items in person, and to see related items in collections at Yale. While these platforms can be used on their own, they can also be employed together in powerful ways. And I want to walk through one quick example of what that might look like. Okay, so let's say, for example, that you are interested in the history and use of Velox papers between 1900 and 1920. As many of you will know, Velox was a very popular gaslight paper introduced by Leo Baekeland in the 1890s, and his company was then purchased by George Eastman in 1899. And the paper was thereafter made and distributed by Kodak. So we're starting our search here in Paperbase, and you can see some of the results in the screenshot here. What's useful about Paperbase's panel at left, which is what we're seeing kind of right here, is that it allows you to quickly compare key qualities like base color and texture between a group of papers. Here, obviously, we're looking at base tone. And as you can see, this group of papers has a fairly wide range of base tones associated with it. And we can also notice that all of these papers come from the same sample book. So 3189, as we can see here. So there are a couple ways you could move forward from here. As I actually just learned this morning, Damon added that lovely search panel in the bottom of Paperbase where you can actually go and look at a Paperbase as a whole and move through it. But you can also move over to Lux to look at the images more closely. All right, so here's one of those digitized images that we're seeing in Lux. And of course, from here, you can also request to view it in person. And then you can also check to see if there are materials in other collections here that may be of use to your research on Velox. So here we are looking at some of the top results for Velox from the Beinecke Library, which, as many of you will know, has a really incredible photography collection. The top results here include handbooks on working Velox papers as well as additional prints made on these papers. The Beinecke, as I also discovered in Lux, holds a very interesting and clearly well-used kit of watercolor stamps for Velox papers, which were used to tint the prints. This is the kind of item you may not have expected to find in the collection, and you certainly wouldn't find in Paperbase, but could open up an interesting avenue of future research. All right, so to close, I just want to say that I hope this overview of accessing the physical collection in Lux and using these materials together with the data in Paperbase has prompted some of you to start planning trips to view the collection in person. And we will look forward to welcoming you back to New Haven then. Thank you.